I fucking, oh my god. I just recorded this entire fucking video and I lost the recording because apparently I accidentally saved over it or something. I'm going to strangle somebody. I want to put my claws into someone's neck. Digital Circus is an isekai if you think about it.
Whatever you say, kid.
I'll be honest, I don't think I watched a single one of Gooseworks' videos before making this. It's not that their stuff is bad, it's just not my type of thing. I think I'd click on. I did scan through a couple of her videos and spot a certain type of interest in digital surrealism, old web aesthetics like crusty JPEGs, Windows XP-like hills, digital noise. From looking at the Darley Boxman show specifically, I noticed a lot of elements that would go into Digital Circus, like the emphasis on hard cuts for comedy, fourth wall breaks, audio edited to sound like it's coming out of a VHS tape, etc. Like, aside from this and a little glance, a little runmo, I wouldn't be what you call a Gooseworks fan. And not to say that I don't have respect for her work. As someone who makes things on a base level, I have respect for anyone who could put their hours in to make an episode-length animation, mostly by themselves. And I heard about Digital Circus through what I like to call a media ambush. One of those things that gets an instant cult fan base and floods your feed instantly. Typically fandom type things like, I don't know, Cookie Run, Breaking Bad, Miku, Jerma 985, a lot of fan art, a lot of attention, and sadly, a lot of, discourse. But this is different from a lot of those other times for me because honestly, Pomni, the main character of the show, has a fantastic design. It's very colorful while somehow not being overwhelming despite using 6 colors. I'll admit that the multicolored pupils and differently colored cheeks are a little bit much for me, but it's good. Her shape language is well done with her spiky jester hat. Her body language, even in fan art, gave me a good idea of her personality as like a scared, kind of meek figure. There's a lot of space on her face for a wide range of fear, There's regular shock, existential horror, trauma, hopelessness, a lot to work with. There's a lot of good variation in shapes and lines on her body. Overall, a top-tier design among the indie animators of the internet. Definitely a design I think got a lot of iterations and progressively improved over time. So I go and see this little adorable jester woman on my timeline and I get curious. Who is this clownish looking woman? Where is she coming from? Well, there's this YouTube channel called Glitch Productions who apparently makes, 3D animations, like whole episodes, whole seasons. And seeing stuff like this on YouTube is incredible, honestly. They're consistent, technically high quality. I can't say anything about the writing because I haven't seen any of their other series, but again, I commend the artistry and work getting done. And within this within this channel is a little pilot called The Amazing Digital Circus that currently is sitting at 10 million views, and I doubt it's stopping there. That's where she's from. This is truly an interesting time for independent animation, at least compared to like multi-billion-dollar studio dependent animation. So many people are getting their chance to produce their own cartoons, and we're seeing the fruits of labor from some long-standing people in the web animation industry. So what's with this sudden popularity for Digital Circus? What's with the hype? How did the show come out? Should we believe in the hype or should we
don't believe the hype? Don't believe the hype.
To explain the plot, Pomni is this amnesiac woman who's trapped in a body of this adorable diminutive jester and is now stuck in this mysterious digital realm after putting on some headset, So in this episode, there are like these things called gloinks or glimbos, I don't remember what they're called, and they're sent all over the tents they're living in, and the characters have to go get them all or something. That's the B plot anyway. And in the A plot, Pomni basically has to find Kane, who's this dentured-shaped circus ringleader guy, to fix up this Raggedy Ann-looking girl who got smacked like a snack that smiles back by this Pibby glitch thing. This glitch is one of the characters named Kaufmo, who's a clown who basically lost his mind and turned into like that thing. And they've used this word abstracted to describe this happening, which is like probably depthful and has like a lot of meaning in the meta sense and the lore of the series or whatever. But right now it's just jargon, right? The base plot is basically simple, right? But apparently my dumbass had to watch the whole short twice to get what's going on. Is it an issue with conveyance or is it an issue with comprehension? I don't know. But honestly, I'll keep my thoughts to myself on the clarity and meshing of the plot. However, what I will not keep to myself is what I think the main issue of this short is. On a technical level, this short is fantastic. Great music, sound design that does what it needs to do, fluid animation with expressive characters, solid shot composition, great voice acting, everything's so glossy and well textured. I can only imagine how long this took to render. I don't think there's anything on a purely technical level that I can spot that I have a particular problem with. But I don't think I like the writing of the short, or at least I'm mixed on it. Now, don't get me wrong, I write stuff. Writing's hard as shit. Writing a show, specifically a pilot, is harder than shit. It is harder than shitting a brick. A pilot is expected to engage the audience on a base level enough to get interested in a full series, right? It's expected to introduce the elements of that series, it's expected to set up the continuing plot line and formula for that series, and it is expected to be self-contained somewhat. This is slightly easier for a status quo show like The Simpsons or SpongeBob, but for shows that like set up a continuing plot line, it's tough shit. And even one of my favorite shows of all time, BoJack Horseman, had a rough time setting up his pilot. So I get how it'd be easy to slip up into something that's not your best on your first try, especially if it's like your first time setting up a series. Still, I have to speak my piece or let me be struck down by a
flying ice cream truck.
This is a Tumblr show. You know how Rick and Morty is classified as like a Reddit show with cynical fourth wall breaking humor and self-referential nature, and Smiling Friends is literally made from people from Newgrounds with like high energy, internet deep cut references and awkward dialogue exchanges.
That's true. That's like 100%. Everything you said was true. It's all gonna be gone.
There's some elements in here that make me think Tumblr show. There's some obvious stuff like the whole Tumblr sexy man character, glitchy character, the back rooms, yeah. But there's some more subtle stuff in here that focuses on like aesthetic elements relating to the internet. You know, weird core, internet core, vaporwave GIFs. I think that what kind of keeps it from feeling derivative is kind of like the wide inspiration of kids shows it's inspired by. Like there's definitely some like Playhouse Disney in here, some PBS Kids in here, a bit of Raggedy Ann movie that was directed by Richard Williams that people were obsessed with for a while in here. Maybe a trace of like 90s PC games. I think what kind of indicates that this is like a Tumblr fan show to me is that the plot kind of falls under the kids media turns bad and evil or whatever formula. And sure, it has some cynical characters from the outset, but it definitely gives me that vibe, you know? I just read in the wiki that Gooseworks' description of the show is I have no mouth and I'm a scream, but with the aesthetic of an I Spy book. Like, I can kind of see it. The hardcore psychological horror in contrast with like the bright, playful, toy-like aesthetics. Yeah, but there's a ton of media on the internet that does that now, right? I mean, I said the words Pibby Glitch before. You know, there's Amanda the Adventure, there's Poppy Playtime, obviously FNAF started this whole thing, you know, Garten of Peak Peak. But I only know about this stuff from like osmosis from social media. I don't even watch YouTubers like that usually. And I'll admit, I'm kind of sick of it. It all feels like too much. Like the fact that Garden of Ban got fucking famous off of being a low quality version of this trope and actually has a substantial fan base now is proved to me as this formula is kind of like an instant fandom button. I don't know. I don't even like the word fandom. I put a part in here about the connotation of the word and what it represents. But no, I just rather use the word fan base. Whatever. I'm probably not a part of the audience the show is going for anyway, but I have nothing wrong with fandoms. I'm just trying to paint a picture of how I view the plot of the show. The vibe of a show is incredibly important to me. A show can have an immaculately written plot, but I wouldn't care because I don't like the setting or the aesthetic style or something, right? And in this case, it's weird because the aesthetic style and the character design draw me in, but the plot and prose take me out. There's this joke that kind of irked me.
Well, we usually do when we first arrive, but after a while you start to realize that you really can't leave, and constantly chasing an unattainable goal will start driving you a bit crazy. And eventually you get to asking what the point of anything is, and you completely lose sight of who you are and why you're even alive, and when you reach your breaking point, something really terrible can happen.
Like, I was so sick of the typical character breaks into shallow bout of existential horror gag that I didn't notice that this was actually like to help set up the insane characters turn into Pibby Glitch's plot beat. And I think that the dialogue-based gags didn't really hit me because the characterization of the cast isn't really strong or is redundant. When you write out characters with strong, contrasting personalities and worldviews, comedy can naturally flow out. To explain, I'll go over the characters really quick. Like I said before, Pomni is characterized pretty well, although as a result of the structure of the plot, she didn't really get to express a wide range of emotions, but this will obviously change as this becomes a series. Jax is characterized pretty well. He's an asshole, simple as that. He actively chooses to antagonize people through the short. I don't really like his design. It seems like it's missing something. It works as a plushie, but when he's standing, there's like a lot of negative space for some reason. I don't know how to describe it. He feels really tall. But yeah, he fucks over people for fun. Is incredibly smug when he does that. I like the type of character. These two characters have built-in personalities that kind of lend themselves to character arcs. Like Pomni could become more confident and brave, and Jax could become more understanding and compassionate, or at least less of a piece of shit. It's possible. On the next rung is Ragatha and Kane. They're slightly more shallow characterization, but they're fun to watch. You know, Kane is kind of an oblivious, magical tormentor type. Has to keep with this fictional show, but I guess that kind of lends itself to these interesting stories. I'm not sure. I definitely don't know if there's much to build off of. You know, I thought of Chris McClane from Total Drama Island. Sure, there are details we learn about him, but overall, he's kind of like a force of nature rather than a distinct character, you know? He causes conflicts and explains certain things. Very utilitarian, but sometimes you need that in a story. Ragatha, or as I like to call her, Raggy, is a character who tries to be welcoming to Pomni and ends up kind of clashing with some obstacles that kind of test her. She's supposed to be like this optimist character, but I don't think they really give her enough time or focus to really hammer it into the plot. You know, there's this one part where she gets her ass kicked by the glitch, and Pomni's like, "Oh, geez, I'm sorry I couldn't help you, Ragatha." And she's like, "Oh, it's chill, dude. Please go find the dude with the teeth so I don't die." And I'm like, yeah, that's her character. That makes sense. Speaking of forces of nature, the glitch, or Kaufmo, is an antagonist. They exist. They're a giant monster that doesn't really say much. Not much of a character, but they fulfill their purpose. Where my issues lie are mostly the other characters. You know, Bubble didn't really much of a character at all. Ganglot's one gag, and it's, "Oh man, my mask broke. I'm so sad and broken." And I couldn't tell you anything else about them besides the fact that they're made out of like this cool spongy ribbon. Kinger, at least in this episode, is completely redundant because Pomni's whole thing is that she's the character that gets scared easily. I don't care how much psychosis he's going through. There's not enough to differentiate him as a character, okay? I don't even know what Zuby's whole deal is. She's kind of like a snippy bitch. Like, what? Jax covers that part pretty fucking well. I could definitely see how they could make him different, maybe later, but Zuby barely even has any lines in the short. She just gets stolen by the Goinks and gets stuck in the Goink Queen. You know, there's not much they do with her. I think the biggest issue with the short is that, like I said before, they have a lot of stuff set up. You know, splitting your focus between 10 characters and a couple of plot lines is not what I do if I had made a pilot. I keep this shit as simple as possible. Like, I think they could have cut it down to Pomni, Kane, Jax, and Rags. They could have also cut the B-plot entirely. Like, an idea I had was that they could have had Jax and Raggy show Pomni around the tent and have this glitch attack Jax and have him forced to ask for help or something against his usual actions. You know, kind of like setting up his character arc or whatever. And then, like, Raggy and Pomni would have to find Kane before he turns into a glitch. It would still have all the sections where Pomni is going through all these weird worlds and doors and sections and shit. But it would have a person who's seen it all, you know, play off of her for comedic purposes, you know? Like, Pomni maybe could have gotten separated from Ragtime and still could have done the backroom scene, but it could have been punctuated, like, as a moment of seriousness surrounded by more comedy. They probably could have done that whole void scene and had Pomni come back as, like, and the rest of the ending, like, play out as normal, basically. They could even kept the gag with, like, "Oh, I'm pretty hungry. You didn't even do anything."
So what? I can still be hungry.
Honestly, I wouldn't have minded if they just cut it down to just Pomni and Jax exploring this weird-ass place. Like, Pomni could have been the scared little sister character, and Jax could have been the jackass older brother. I don't know. It might not be better, but at least it's different. I will say that the visual gags in the short were alright. They reminded me of, like, something that'd be in Gary's Mod or, like, a Source filmmaker video. There were a lot of visual references that I thought were cool. Specifically, that pawn gag in the middle was very good. But I don't think there were any jokes that made me, like, laugh or even exhale audibly. While I was halfway through the short, I stopped because I was thinking of this Conjun House joke. And if you don't know, Conjun House is basically this YouTube show that's kind of like inspired by YouTube poops, right? And it has some of the funniest writing I've ever heard.
Who is this? It's Mr. Demp. Spell it.
Oh, I'm sure that's not necessary. It's just a
No,
five-letter
I
word.
insist.
Okay, well,
D as in Dimp, E as in Imp, M as in Mr. Dimp, P as in Yeah, I'll just show to send the message.
Dimp, Mr. Dimp, Mr. Dimp, Mr. Dimp, Mr. Dimp, Mr. Dimp. And it's funny because technically Content House and Digital Circus have the same genre of like surreal comedy, but Digital Circus's surrealism is like mostly in its visual and aesthetic elements, and Content House surrealism is baked right into his writing style and joke structure.
And why are his legs comprised of the 7 chaos? Oh shit, it's the Bible!
And I make the comparison not to put down Digital Circus, but like to show my type of humor. Like Content House is a completely different type of show anyway. It's incredibly short episodes, has no continuing plot, nothing like that, focused entirely on jokes. But both these are like examples of independently made YouTube series. One of them is basically just like exclusively singular vision, and the other has a pretty sizable staff. Two sides of the same coin. You know, I enjoy Content House because the jokes are, you know, quickly paced. You get a clear idea of the speaking characters' personalities from any given exchange. The character dynamics are simple to understand, but also lend themselves to comedy. The humor is always misdirecting you, which is like the path paved with comedic gold. Each episode is filled with stuff you can clearly see that Condon himself thought was funny. Digital Circus has some jokes, but they feel like they were written by like a committee, you know? It's not the Marvel, Disney, lampshading jokes like, did you guys see that? So weird, right?
I think Coolsville sucks.
But it feels like they're kind of flat.
Shut your stupid.
Let me phrase it this way. I have this note that says, this show is written like it could be on Nick, and like it could be shown on the same block as The Loud House. This is a compliment and a criticism. Like it's well done enough to be in a multi-million-dollar TV production, but it also fits in with The Loud House, a show that I personally think is pretty bland. I think this show has potential. Like I said before, BoJack Horseman is one of my favorite pieces of media of all time, and it had a rocky first episode. There's definitely a lot that could be done here, you know? I just think that they need to polish up the writing, keep it simple so they could tell a more focused story, you know? I had a couple of notes about the Digital Circus being like this allegory for the current state of the internet, being like this dumping ground for safe junk food content or something.
This is dumb and weird.
Well, yet you're still watching it.
So what? I can still be hungry.
Well, not really, because we don't need to eat, drink, or sleep in this digital world. So the digital food here only gives off the virtual sensation of eating without any of the nutritional benefits.
Sheesh, lay off it.
Or maybe that this pilot could be like interpreted as like an examination of the internet's obsession with aesthetics. But I don't have enough evidence for either of those because, I mean, it is only a pilot. And I'm not going to stretch theories for a show I barely even like the writing of. But it would be cool if it could be thematically implemented based entirely on this video. I don't know. Some of those themes would be interesting. Some themes would be interesting. Anyway, if you're not gonna have strong comedy writing, at least make it dramatically interesting. I'm sorry. I really hope this video came off as legitimate criticism from someone who appreciates art, because I at least want to say something meaningful with a video that's 10 pages long. The last thing I want to say is that if anyone in the crew is watching, which they're not, I want to say that I love your work. And I one day want to do something like you're doing. Meaningful work, rowing a ship with a crew to an unknown island, making art that makes the world a more colorful place. I want to see you improve. By now, this is probably the second most popular video on the Glitch Production channel, maybe even the first by the time you're watching this. And there are a lot of eyes on you now. And even if it's not for me, I respect the hustle. It's easy to tear down and criticize, but even from down here, going out and making something is incredible. Keep doing it. And for the audience, support the artists that you love, buy their stuff, commission them, leave a good comment. Hell, making a video like this is even helping at some rates. Just be kind to artists, love art, make shit. Thanks for watching. This is probably a one-time thing. I only review shit that's interesting. If I ever become a seasonal anime reviewer, give me a podcast and $1 million. Thank you. Bye.